Friends, our second reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew in the second chapter. Listen for the word of the Lord speaking to us. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out from there. Ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and they paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We call these travelers in Matthew's gospel by many names. We call them the three kings. Most of us know them as the three wise men. I hate to call tradition into question, but Matthew actually doesn't refer to them as kings, nor does he tell us that there were three. There could have been 20 magi, for all we know. Matthew gives them a different, stranger name, the name I just said, Magi. Now, the word Magi suggests something different, possibly, than wise men and kings. These Magi were star readers, star gazers. They were ancient astronomers. They were antiquities NASA. All these years, we've called them wise men. But if we read the story closely, shouldn't we ask, just what kind of wisdom is this? If you want to find out just how unwise and peculiar these magi are, just go to your office or school or to your friends and family tomorrow and tell them, "I've seen signs in the sky. There's a big old star up there that tells me that a king is going to be born halfway across the earth. So I'm going to use all my vacation and be gone for a while. Oh, and by the way, I'm emptying my savings account so that I can give it to the king when I meet him, because you can't exactly show up to meet a king empty-handed, can you?" No, that doesn't sound wise at all. Of course, the problem is not only that the Magi seem unwise, the problem is that they're really the wrong people for this kind of story. Many of us have heard this story many times, seen it depicted in our tranquil nativities over Christmas, so much that it's completely lost on us where these magi are actually traveling from. Matthew tells us, from the east. Magi from the east. In gospel writers speak, that means the magi are not from around here. If Matthew were a southerner, the Magi would be Yankees, like me and Laura. For our minds, as well as the Israelite mind, the East conjures up images of war and death. Our country has been fighting people from the East for 4 decades. For the people to which Jesus was born, the Jewish people, the East conjured up images of trauma and tragedy and torment that they would never forget. See, the East is the direction where Babylon is. The East is the direction that God's people were marched in 586 BCE after her beloved Jerusalem was burned to the ground and their king was taken away with fish hooks piercing through his skin. See, people from the east had taken the lives of Israelites' loved ones, of their husbands and daughters and sisters and friends. People from the east were terrorists in the Jewish mind. If you want to get the idea of just what this event I'm describing was like, imagine 9/11 and multiply it by 100. You begin to get the devastation that occurred. So imagine with me that one day, maybe the Sunday after New Year's Day, a group of magi from the east enter through the gates of our holy city that we had just rebuilt with our bare hands, the temple we had rebuilt after 500 years of its destruction. As the magi, with their different clothing and foreign language, enter into the city, people begin to do what people do. We whisper to one another behind their backs, saying, "Aren't those people from the east? Aren't those Babylonians? What business could they possibly have in our city, in Jerusalem?" And then the foreign magi travelers open their mouths and they ask one question, some of the only words that we have from them in the entire Bible. "Where is the King of the Jews?" they ask. Did they just say something about our king? But how dare they speak about our king? Do you think they mean him harm? Why do they care where our king is living, where our king is born? These foreign magi can't possibly be up to any good. This one simple question, "Where is the King of the Jews?" shoots fear into the hearts of all of Jerusalem and Herod with them. The whole city, says Matthew, the whole city was filled with fear, captured by fear, struck by fear, drunk with fear. As I read this, you know what I want to know? My question for Matthew is, what are they so afraid of? Why are the people so afraid? The text just simply doesn't say. But as I stand in the crowd with the people looking at these foreign travelers, I can guess. I felt this fear 2 years ago when some 30 Congolese refugees began attending our worship services in Greensboro. Their clothes were different from ours. They certainly weren't church appropriate. Most of them did not speak our language. I noticed that during the passing of the peace, no one was greeting them. I felt, even in my own heart, an intent not to greet them. If I'm honest, I was afraid, I think, of these people because they were different from me. They were from the East. They were from a different land, wore different clothes, spoke a different language, worshiped God in a different way, ate food differently than I did when I grew up. For several months, my fear kept me from seeing what I had to learn from these new worshipers who not only attended worship in the mornings on Sundays in a language they did not speak, but held their own worship services for some 3 hours every Sunday evening where they would praise and sing to the Lord all night long. When Laura and I attended their worship service for the first time, we were their honored guests. You would have thought we were king and queen. All of Jerusalem, all of us, filled with fear by those who are different, by what is different. This fear keeps Herod and all of Jerusalem from seeing the wonderful thing that is taking place right under their noses. Down the road, the King of the Jews has been born and is alive, and they cannot see it. Fear is a powerful emotion. History has shown us this. Our present day continues to show us this, but this fear will not lead us to see Jesus. It will not. The surprise of Matthew's gospel is that the wrong people from the wrong place, following a star out of nowhere, ask the question at the heart of the gospel story. The question at the center of human history, the question that we ought to ask every new year: where is the King of the Jews? Where is Jesus? Where is he? I bet if we're honest, this question rings true in our hearts today. With uncertain futures and regrets from the past, with hardships that come our way, with the death of loved ones, with loneliness and anxiety and depression that capture us, with worries about money or children, with all that a new year might mean for us, I bet today, where we cannot see what comes next, that this question stands for us in bold print. Where is the King of the Jews? Jesus, where are you? Where will you be this year? Will you be with me? As the story continues, the Magi receive no help from the anxious, fearful people, and so they travel to a secret meeting with the nervous and frightened King Herod. Now, if I were one of the Magi, I would have expected baby Jesus to be in that palace when I arrived, and Matthew doesn't say they didn't. I'd expect war generals and leaders lining up to pay their tribute. I looked this up. 14 million people tuned into the royal wedding last year. You may have been one of them. Surely crowds will flock to this royal scene, to this royal birth. Surely the TV cameras are flashing and the news anchors are jostling for position to get the story, just to catch a glimpse of the baby king born in Bethlehem. But as if the presence of the Magi isn't surprise enough, we are met with another surprise. King Jesus isn't there. Nobody knew when Jesus was born. If you'd checked Facebook that day, you wouldn't have heard about Jesus. The religious leaders, the pastors, and the scholars, they didn't know where he was born. So, where is he? Where is the King of the Jews? Where are you, Jesus? As the Magi journey away from the palace of the mighty king, the star moves farther and farther and farther away from the holy city. I imagined one Magi looking to the other and saying, "This isn't exactly the good side of town, is it?" And then finally, after thousands of miles traveled, after looking at the stars for their entire lives, finally the star stops right over a beat-up barn that's in need of a new roof and a bright paint job and a new heater. And there in the barn is a young girl named Mary. In her arms is the King, born in the barn, baby Jesus, who looks small even in her teenage arms. Mary doesn't speak. The wise men don't speak. As they look at the child, Matthew says they are overwhelmed with joy. Overwhelmed with joy. It is not fear, but joy that has led them to the child. And as their hearts burn with joy, the Magi file in and bow down before the infant king. I wonder, will it be fear or joy that will lead you in this new year? The irony is that baby Jesus is yet to do anything that he's famous for. He's yet to preach or teach or heal or touch the unclean or die on a cross or be raised from the dead. He's certainly yet to feed himself. He hasn't yet uttered a syllable, and his crib lay next to a pile of manure in a room that stinks of wild animals. And yet, they, the out-of-towners, they, the immigrant stargazers from the east, bow down. They worship him. There in that room with that host of odd characters is the first worship service of the New Testament. As the Magi bow down, they begin to bring their gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Isaiah had spoken of these first two gifts, gold and of frankincense. We heard that in the scripture read today from the 60th chapter, but Isaiah did not speak of the third gift, of myrrh. See, myrrh in the ancient world was a perfume that you would put on a dead body to prepare it for burial. In other words, the Magi bring a casket to Jesus' baby shower. It's quite awkward. Even as Advent and Christmas are behind us now, Matthew's gospel gives us a foretaste of Lent to come. One day, the fear of Jerusalem, the fear of all of us, will grow so deep and so great that it will kill this baby boy. And his mother Mary will weep over his body and sprinkle myrrh from his head to his toes. So where is the King of the Jews? Where is Jesus? We may have to follow a group of foreigners to a barn in the middle of nowhere to find our answer. The King of all is born in the lowest of places, born amidst a world so afraid of what his birth might mean for us, what it might require of us, what it might change in us. This baby will spend his whole life long in the low places of the world, in our low places, in your low places, in mine, with all that is broken and bent within us. With us who are overworked and addicted. With us who are depressed and anxious. With us who are afraid of what is different, afraid of who is different. With us who are terrified about a new year and what it means. With us who are afraid of another year of grief or loss or loneliness. With us whose families are divided and broken. With us unforgiven and unforgiving. With us who have forgotten how to love one another. With us amidst our doubts. With us churchgoers whose faith sometimes feels wrung out, dry, and flat. With us. Where is the King of the Jews? Where is Jesus? With us. With us. With us.